All right, so it's a minute past 7. So just to respect the time of our guest speaker and those who are already here, we'll just kickstart and then more people will join in later as we continue our conversation. So welcome to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Gertrude Asumedu, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Global Activist Network. So, as some of you may know, October is Black History Month celebration, and the theme for this year is reclaiming narratives. And today we have an amazing guest speaker who has done incredible work, and she's here to share some insights with us, and so that we can also have an amazing discussion as well. So I'm excited to have her here. But before we go on to introduce our guest speaker, a few housekeeping rules. So please be on mute as we have the conversation with our guest speaker so it doesn't interrupt. If you have any questions, please leave it towards the end so we can ask our guest speaker, and I'm sure she'll be happy to answer your questions. And we are streaming live on our Facebook platform as well. So you can ask your friends to join and listen in from there. And this session also is, as you may have noticed at the beginning, is being recorded. So just to take note of that. All right then. So let's just go on to introduce our guest speaker, who is Patricia Kumbakisaka. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If I didn't, apologies. Our guest speaker is in the person of Patricia Kumbakisaka, who is also known as Canada's global citizen, and she is a case processing officer with the government of Canada with a wealth of experience and expertise in foreign policy, diplomacy, migration, and international relations. She has represented Canada in bilateral and multilateral engagements with other states and international organizations, such as the UN Youth Assembly in New York, Romania, Moldova, Netherlands, Germany, and many other countries. She was born in Bucharest, Romania at the age of 3, moved to Athens, Greece, and lived there for 7 years, and now resides in Canada. Wow, like you've really been around a lot. And she has developed a project called Canada's Diversity Advantage, which aims to highlight and promote the strength and diversity that brings to Canadian society. Sorry, the strength and that diversity brings to Canadian society. Through this initiative, Patricia sought to underscore the contributions of immigrants and the importance of embracing multiculturalism for a prosperous and inclusive Canada. She continues to advocate for policies and practices that support integration, equality, and mutual respect among all Canadians and the world. Her passion for diplomacy, international relations, and community engagement drives her effort to ensure that Canada remains a beacon of diversity and inclusion on the global stage. So thank you so much for joining us today, Patricia. Just before we kickstart the conversation, do you want to say anything to our attendees, our participants on the call today before we start?
Thank you, Gertrude, for the wonderful introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon from Canada, I guess evening in the UK. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are honored to have you here. So, like I said in my introduction, this month, October, is a month that has been set aside to celebrate Black history. So it's known as the Black History Month. And so this is what our conversation today will be about. So if you didn't know about Black History Month, maybe this will be a right opportunity for you to get to know more about what it's all about. So first off, Patricia, what are your views on Black History Month celebration or the Black History Month itself?
Yes, thank you for the question, Gertrude. Black History Month, for me, it's an essential time for both a reflection and celebration. So I see it as a celebration where it provides a dedicated space to recognize and honor amazing achievements, resilience, and contributions of Black people throughout the history. for me, it's not just a commemoration of the past, but it's also a reminder of the ongoing struggle for equality, representation, and justice. So Black History Month, for me, highlights the stories that are often overlooked or erased and in mainstream narratives, and reinforces the importance of continuing to uplift Black voices throughout the year and not just throughout the month. It's about fostering a culture of appreciation of Black contributions every day and recognizing that they form an essential part of the social, cultural, and political fabric of societies globally.
Thank you so much for that. Before I move on to the next question, I just want to ask a follow-up question. Do you think just a month is like enough, or like, yeah, enough to celebrate like Black history?
No. I guess, yeah, no, it like Black History Month, it should be something that's ongoing. It shouldn't be even Black History Month. It should just be, Black history that, people should be aware of it all the time. Just like we read stories of different countries, different cultures, different ethnicities. It's a story that, people should, every day learn a fun fact, about a famous Black person, whether it's in the present or in the past. So it should be something that's being educated daily and all the time, not just a specific month.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So what do you think? I mean, because Black History Month is about Black people and our culture and like, what makes us and all what we've been through and what we're still like sort of going through in whether in the diaspora or you're back home in Africa or wherever. So who do you think should celebrate like this month, Black History Month?
Good question. Black History Month should be celebrated and observed by everyone. So you do not have to be Black. Everyone should be observing this day. It's a time for all communities to educate themselves and reflect the systemic challenges that Blacks have faced and learn about the vital contribution also for Black individuals in shaping societies. So, for example, in businesses, in school, in governments, and individuals from all backgrounds should engage in very meaningful discussions to celebrate the Black culture and explore how they can be a positive change into this. And for non-Black individuals, it's an opportunity to become an ally, to understand more the story, advocate by deepening and understanding the Black history and taking action to the systems that perpetuate inequality. And observing the Black History Month is about coming together as a society to create a more inclusive future. That's how I see it.
More inclusive future, like that's really on point. We'll come back to that. But moving forward, do you think, with everything that Black people have been through and still go through, like in today's in today's world, do you think enough, apart from Black History Month, like let's put that aside, do you think enough is done to celebrate or elevate the impact Black people have had in a contribution towards like society?
Well, I think that there's still much progress to be made, honestly, in truly celebrating and elevating, the impact of Black people's contribution to the society. While Black History Month and various initiatives help raise awareness, these efforts often feel confined to specific times of the year, and they're not integrated into a broader narrative of society year-round. So like we said in the beginning, it shouldn't just be a month that's focused. It should be, all the time, it should be happening every day. Every day we should learn something, read something, pick a book, watch a movie, documentary. Such like in many cases, Black achievements and contributions are still underrepresented in many sectors, in education, in media, leadership positions. And these legacies of systemic racism continuing to limit full recognition. This needs to be, in my opinion, this needs to be more consistent, intentional action to address these barriers that prevent Black people from being fully recognized and values. This also includes increasing, representation in leadership roles across industries, promoting Black stories in mainstream media, and ensuring that Black history is also part of a core curricular in education systems and not just an afterthought. So that's how I see it. Like, I'm not saying there's not progress that's being done. There's people talking more about it, which is good. But again, we haven't arrived to the final stage, the enough stage of it.
Yeah, so like basically there's progress, but there's still like more that can be done. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. So whilst I was reading your profile, I was amazed. I was impressed. I was like, okay, like you've done a lot, like, from your childhood and like moving around and now settled in Canada and all the amazing work that you've done. So as an individual, as a Black woman living in Canada, how have you contributed to the Black culture or, to our culture as Black people through your work in diplomacy and international relations?
Mm-hmm. In my work field, I focused on the importance on promoting inclusivity and elevating diverse voices, particularly for Blacks and marginalized communities. So I made sure, like if I had example, various youth, Black youths, or any youth of color, or any youth, that had questions and want mentorship, I made sure that I was available for that. So for instance, as you read my biography, I created a project called Canada's Diversity Advantage. So it was to show and appreciate the diversity that we have, like how people come from all different backgrounds together and how much they bring, whether it's their skills, whether it's their work, education, we should be embracing that. We should be appreciative of that. And representation definitely matters in my field of studies, in my field of work, I mean, international affairs. And being a Black woman in this space allows me to highlight the importance of diversity in shaping foreign policy and global relationships through mentorship and public speaking. So again, like I've also had mentors too. So, and I'm happy to pass down, to the younger generation also to mentor them and saying, like you can do this. If I did it, if I passed through obstacles, so can you. You just have to have that confidence. And I also continue to work to inspire others from Black and underrepresented backgrounds to enter in the international relations field and ensuring that future leaders will continue to elevate Black perspectives on the world stage.
That's really profound. I just want to touch on something you mentioned. So you mentioned something about providing mentorship, and also, and I'm sure as a to get to where you were, or you are currently, you have also had the opportunity to be mentored by someone. So can you just throw a bit more light on how, first of all, how accessible it is as a Black woman to get people like yourself to mentor you, and how difficult it was or how easy it was? Like,
Mhm.
can you throw more light on that?
Yeah, it's difficult and easy. It depends again because the mentor is not just gonna show up at your door, say, "Hey, I want to mentor you." You have to first look for the right mentor for you, and second of all, you have to also have that confidence because when a mentor sees someone that wants to be mentored, they want to, make sure that person is also confident. So I would say if there are, any youth that are listening now and you're looking for a mentor in a specific field, don't think that there aren't. There are, but first of all, you need to have that confidence in yourself that I want to do it, but I need someone, to kind of guide me through it. And I can do it because if, I've mentored some younger people that in the beginning they were not very confident in themselves. They said, I can't do this. No, I wish I could, but it's not me. I can never get there. I said, yes, you can, but if you have that attitude, then you can't, you won't be able to get there and you won't be able to find the right mentor. So it's not really about easy or hard. It really depends first on yourself. If you have that confidence, if you rely on yourself first, and you said, okay, I want to find a mentor that can show me how to do that, then you can. And I would advise, there's volunteering opportunities. There is those who are students, you can reach out to your professors. Those who have friends, you can, or who have friends that know someone, you can reach out to your friends, say, is there someone that, I can pick their brain and kind of like shadow them. So again, there's different paths of finding mentorship in your field. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree when you say it's easy and it's hard at the same time,
Mhm.
because I also have my own story, but I don't want to go so much for this particular webinar, maybe another time. So thank you so much for that. So moving on to like the theme for this year's Black History Month celebration, it's reclaiming narratives. So what does that mean like for you as a Black person living in the diaspora?
Yes, that's a good question. So reclaiming narratives resonates deeply with me as a Black person living and working in the diaspora, especially in the context of my multicultural background. It speaks to the power of telling my own stories, or I guess our own stories in general, from our own perspectives in ways that reflect to our rich histories, identities, and experience. For so long, Black histories have been told by others, often misrepresent or incomplete. And reclaiming those narratives for me means that we can reshape how we've viewed and how we view ourselves, emphasizing our contributions, resilience, and the diversity within the Black communities. As for my case, as someone who's lived in different parts of the world, this theme also speaks to the diaspora's collective experience. So by that, I mean, for example, whether in Africa, Europe, North America, the Black narrative is interconnected yet distinct and shaped by, migration, colonization, the struggle for identity in new contexts. So by reclaiming these stories, I think we challenge stereotypes and we create space for more complex, authentic representation for Black life, heritage, and potential.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I I should have asked this in the beginning, but let me just ask since you mentioned it in your answer. So you seem to have lived in like about how many, 4, 5 countries? Correct me.
So I'll explain. So I was born in Romania.
Mhm.
I grew up in Greece, Athens, and then I came to Canada at the age of 10. But I did work overseas too in Romania, went to Greece again, Netherlands, Germany. Yes, I can't think of the rest. And
Okay,
the States, of course, and the States.
okay, so let's say about 5 or 6 countries so
Yeah.
far. Yeah. So
Mhm.
how do you think l- living and like experiencing those countries and cultures as a Black person, like how do you think it has shaped like your career and your life so far, like current and like, getting to where you are now as well? Like how do you think those experiences, like dealing with pe different people from different like backgrounds and all that, and even
Mhm.
with fellow Black people, with the diversity and the distinctiveness and also the similarities in our cultures, like how do you think that has shaped you so far?
It's a good question. Definitely, by living in all those different countries, I got to learn how all those different cultures work because all the cultures have different mentality. Some cultures are quieter, some cultures are louder, welcoming, some cultures are more closed and reserved. So by living in those countries, I at such a young age, until I grew up, I got to learn a bit more, like how to work with those people from those certain regions of the world. And also, I guess the privilege I have is the language too. I'm able to communicate in 5 languages. So some of those languages are from the regions that I lived. So again, like if I go to Greece, and I speak Greek, and everyone is like shocked, because, a Black person that speaks Greek so well and sounds like a local, they said, oh, very good. It's, you don't see that every day. So, and it's not just me, like it's my family. We're all very multilingual. So again, it's something that as a Black person, people sometimes are shocked when they don't know, they meet me and then they don't know that I speak all these languages. I've been to all these places, and I'm usually like, oh, very well articulated and very worldly and stuff like that. But again, like those countries have kind of shaped me who I am, but at the same time, like I still identify myself like as a proud Black woman that's multicultural, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Of course. It's also evident in like your work and like who you are as a person. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I'm sure all those experiences are not always like positive or gloomy and like all that. Like there's always like the also the other side. So mean, being in the diaspora for so long, can you share some challenges that you've also experienced as a Black person living in the diaspora, and especially also in your line of work? And
Mm-hmm.
how have you overcome them? And like, is there any like key lessons that you've learned out of it that you would like to share with us?
Yes, absolutely. So, in my line of work as a Black person in the diaspora, you need to be, first of all, you need to be confident and have patience as you will meet, like I mentioned, people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and sometimes, those, you may not understand, you may be like, oh, why are they saying this? And so and so. For my case, in the past, I've encountered challenges related to both subtle and overt forms of exclusion or racism. And there have been instances where my expertise of knowledge was questioned more than others. So assumptions were made about my abilities based on my identity rather than my qualifications. But again, that wasn't stopping me from continuing my work. Like this is something that has happened in the past. Like that's why I say there's always going to be challenge in life as a person of color. But again, if you give up, you're not gonna be that person that people will look up to. Like if Rosa Parks didn't, stand up for what happened at the bus, we wouldn't be reading about her. So overcoming these challenges for me required persistence and self-confidence, and finding supportive networks of allies, mentors who understood my experience and offered guidance. A key lesson that I've learned is to be an unapologetic about my contributions and the value that I bring. So it's important to stand firm in your identity and experience, while also encouraging, institutions to embrace diversity in meaningful ways. I've also learned to advocate for myself and others in underrepresented groups, and recognizing that systemic change still requires collective efforts.
Hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really didn't want to go there, but I have to go there. So you and I knew you mentioned racism because that's something that I feel like almost every Black person living in the diaspora might have directly or indirectly like you experienced. My parents lived in Italy for years and I visited them, so I heard stories from them and also from family friends of like racism that they faced, especially at work. And it's some of the stories are quite, just I can't believe that, someone would do something of that sort to like a fellow human being, but that is the kind of world like we live in. So when it comes to racism, like people like to avoid conversations about that, especially after the whole 2020 George Floyd's murder, Black Lives
Mhm.
Matter, and the whole, rage that it brought, which obviously was valid. Do you think, you know, do you think racism, like, whether it's subtle or glaring or however you want to put, do you think it's something like that can can end?
Mm.
Think as Black people is something that we should just get over it, like you're in someone's country, so why are you complaining, or is it something that we should develop a thick skin, or is it something that we should constantly address?
Definitely, we should constantly address because it will constantly happen.
Yeah,
And it continues, it continues to happen. And there's different ways that it happens. It's not just they said, I don't want to sit next to you because you are Black. There's different, very polite ways that it can also happen. And those things can be addressed. You can challenge the person and say, ask them, oh, I'd like to know, why was I randomly selected at the airport? Like I want to know because that happened to me. That has happened to me. I've asked, I said, just curious, why? Like I asked with a smile, but it wasn't like a hey,
yeah,
happy smile. It was like, tell me, I want to know. I
yeah,
want to know. And they said, oh, no, it's just the system. And I
yeah,
said, I'm
routine.
curious to know the stats. What's the stats? Is the system just, picking a certain age group? I started by asking age, maybe certain height, maybe certain, uh, I don't know, alphabetically by passports, stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it's definitely your question is very good, and it definitely needs to be addressed. It needs to be asked. It needs to be spoken because it happens and it continues to happen, but very discreetly now. It's not
Yeah,
maybe as rough as it was back in the days, back in the slavery days, but it's still happening, and I still see it, and
yeah.
not just to me and to my other friends of color too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. It happened to me on two occasions in Italy. Like, I don't want to go into the detail because I don't want to bore like everyone, but it happened in Italy about 3 years ago. And the whole treatment I received, I was like, this is crazy. And it happened
Mm-hmm.
just last year, at an airport, like, just selected with a friend. And our bags searched after going through like coming back, like customs, like searched about like asking us very weird questions, what we did for a living, where we are coming.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, but people are going and you didn't select them like every, and it's just us, like two Black women coming from a holiday and asking all
Mm-hmm.
weird questions about what we do for a living and all that. I mean, like I was absolutely like disgusted. I was like, I can't believe this is happening like to me right now. But I'm saying it with a smile on my face, but it's actually, it's quite sad because these things happen in institutions like in the UK here. I think
Mm-hmm.
some time ago I saw on Twitter like there's this I think there was this trending topic about universities and racism like happening there, and the Black people always calling for like out for like support, and they not receiving any help, it's mostly brushed aside, or they just give you generic responses, or we are absolutely against racism, we do not support, all those kind of very like formality type of like statement releases and press releases, and like it's like
Yes.
brushed like over or just swept under the cover and like under the carpet. And barely nothing is done. But then it's like you find yourself sort of like always calling attention to it. Like that's why I say, do we have to constantly address, like, is this something that, because I also ask myself, then what?
It is, and if I can add a point, I know we've touched that in the past, like about education, educating people, that um, to not have a stereotype, about Blacks, Asians, Latino, because one of my old job, I used to work with international students, and a student from a certain country came to me and said, "You are not like all the Black people, because that student comes from a country that's closed, and they saw a lot of American movies, and they think, they're all like this." And I said, first of all, the Hollywood stuff, like, don't rely that as a resource. Don't use that as a resource. And second of all, what they show there, don't believe. Not everyone is like that. Like, it's like, no, not every Black person is good at playing basketball or soccer. I am terrible at soccer. I'm good at basketball, but I am terrible at soccer. Like, don't believe those like stereotypes. Get to know someone for who they are, not based on what you saw on CNN or on Hollywood movies, American movies. So again, like, going back to the education part, people need to be educated. This needs to be more live stream, more in books, in movies, that it's not just how it's portrayed. Yeah. Mm.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. So moving on, how do you think we can decolonize our narratives to strengthen our voices as Black people?
Okay, decolonizing our narrative, for me, I think it involves reclaiming ownership of our stories and ensuring that our stories are told correctly from our perspective rather than through the lens, of oppression or colonization. So, in order to do this, we must, center our voices in historical and cultural discussions, ensuring that our stories reflect our resilience, achievements, and complexity. We must also challenge the mainstream narratives that reduce Black experiences to stereotypes or victimhood by creating platform for authentic Black story in media, academia, and public discourse. And, also make sure we incorporate Afrocentric viewpoints into education, politics, society at large, while also emphasizing the interconnectedness of Black experiences across the diaspora. So it's important to strengthen our voice, means breaking free from the framework and imposed by colonialism and asserting the richness of Black identities globally.
Yeah, and thank you for that. You mentioned you made a lot of good points, and what I wanted to touch on, like the Black representation in the media, and like telling our own stories. And I'm a lover of film. I love like films, and I don't really do I do a bit of Hollywood, but I really like African movies. And even though some people might find it, oh, you like African movies too much. What am I supposed to like? I'm African. So I would definitely have to love African movies. And I just speak in reference to Netflix partnering with like South Africa, Nigeria, Hollywood, and now they're funding their movies and they're telling their story and they're making amazing movies, like and it's all available on Netflix, a global platform, and like you can see like the detailing, like the attention to detail and the richness of the stories. And like it's so beautiful to see that some of these, like maybe should I say, Asian stories and epic movies that are like being told like on a global platform. And like it's black culture, it's Black history, and it's beautiful to see like the journey. Because if you look up like maybe 20-30 years ago, Black stories, or should I say African movies, have come a long way. And it's nice to see like how far it's gone. Even recently you had Supercell on Netflix, which is like a
Mhm.
series about sickle cell awareness and like, Black superheroes and all that. And it's, beautiful to see like, Black people having that attention and having that platform to showcase our talent and our stories, telling our stories in our own way, in our voices, not somebody telling our stories for us, which
Mhm.
very important, because if you don't, I don't know who had this, oh, sorry, who said it, but I heard this somewhere. If you don't tell your story, someone will tell it for you in their own voice.
Yes, 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 exactly.
It's important as like individuals and as Black people, it's really important that we tell our own stories, whether it's through, I mean, you don't have to partner with Netflix to be able to tell your story. If you can write a blog, if you can, shoot a movie or something, a documentary with your iPhone, something like, do in your own way, so that you don't like, maybe you die, or I mean after you die or whatever, like then somebody, just takes pieces of it and tells the story for you, and they wouldn't be telling it in your own voice. They will be
Mhm.
telling it according to their perspective. So I mean, as a lover of African movies, I'm so happy like for the growth I've seen so far, and like, for the attention to detail and the funding, and that's available for creatives as well to be able to tell our own stories. And it's beautiful to see. And I'm definitely sure that there will be so much more like coming up. So thank you for that. So moving on, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but
Yeah, no, it's I like what you said, it's important for us to tell our own stories, like because again, like you mentioned, someone else says it may not be covering the whole story, and it's also good because I like to read books, so it's good to, if you have like a story you want to share or like leave it on or pass it on, to your kids and stuff like that. It's good, you can, why not write a book, right? People may read this, it may be passed on, and then they know the book, at least it's written by you.
mhm.
So yeah, no, what you mentioned is very true. It's really
Yeah.
important we tell our own stories.
Yeah, and I remember back in secondary school, I'm from Ghana originally, and back in secondary school, I did history, and I remember we did something oral type of history where the stories is passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. So like you rely, I grew up with my grandma, so there's so many things I learned from her, and then
Yes,
I
yeah.
some of them I wasn't taught in school, so like it's good to know. Then I can also share with like the next generation and all that, but sometimes it can also get lost because like
Yes.
what if it's not passed down? So that's why, telling it like in another format. Now we have technology, so you can write a blog, you can write a book, you can,
Mhm.
shoot a movie, like do so many things like to keep those stories, because it's really, really important, because it's part of our history, it's part of our
Mhm.
culture, and like we don't want to lose it, So yeah, I agree. And thanks for that addition. So moving on, is there a path of reparation that can be explored?
I believe so. I believe yes. The path to reparation is both possible and necessary. Reparation should address not only on injustices, but also on ongoing consequences of systemic problems such as systemic racism and so and so. This can take various forms, including things like, investment in education, healthcare, economic opportunities for Black communities, institutional reform to address structural inequalities such as bias in the justice system, discriminatory policies, and lack of access to resources, financial compensation to communities that have been historically marginalized and exploited, public acknowledgement of the harms done through historical wrongs, uh, and financial compensation, as I mentioned, is often highlighted. Reparation must be multi-faced, addressing the economic, social, and emotional damage inflicted to Black people across the world. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So the next question that you sort of touch on, like the term or the like slavery or the slave trade. We cannot talk about Black History Month without looking back. Like
Mm.
like in Ghana there are two slave castles. There's one at Elmina and there's one at Cape Coast. And I happen to attend secondary school in one the region where those both of them are in the central region. So I had a privilege to go there, and every time I go there, I'm emotional. I don't know, maybe because some people may go there
Yes.
and they wouldn't feel any emotions, which is fine, but I do, and we cannot pretend that slave trade didn't happen, because this is something that happened for about 200 years or so, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
long time, a long time, like 2 centuries, like, and this happened, and it's the worst and worst of, like, is the worst kind of thing that can happen to anybody, and I cannot even begin to imagine like what like our ancestors went through. But so do you think we really managed to abolish slavery in its true sense?
Mm. Well, slavery, its traditionally legal sense, has been abolished, but its legacy persists in many forms. Modern systems of oppression, such as mass incarceration, exploitative labor practices, human trafficking, can be seen as extensions of slavery. In addition to systemic racism, economic inequality, and social exclusions, are byproducts of slavery and colonialism that continue to affect the Black communities today. True abolition of slavery means dismantling these systems of inequality and trying to create a society where the freedom and opportunities are accessible to everyone, regardless of race. We must continue to address these lingering forms of oppressions through policy reform, again, education. Education is important, and the pursuit of justice. So legally, slavery is gone, but again, there still needs to be, people still need to know about it, because this is how the story started. This is how, you have Blacks in the Caribbean, Blacks in, other parts of the world. And then they all came from the African continent. So it's really important to talk about that
Yeah.
as well, to know the story for that.
I mean, I like the points that you mentioned about, like, slavery, or should I say inequalities, sort of like, existing, like, even though slavery has legally ended, like, years ago, centuries ago. Currently, in people say, like, there's a lot of discourse, like when I go to social media, and then people say, yeah, like, slavery may have ended physically, but mental slavery is still like, something that is there. And because there's so many, I think, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a Ghanaian problem, but I
Mhm.
realized something when I was back home, that most people tend to, like, prefer foreign goods or foreign produce to local produce, no matter how
Mhm.
much of a quality that the local produce. For some reason, they still prefer what is foreign, when it
Mhm.
comes to fashion, when it comes to food, when it comes to music, like even our language.
Mhm.
I remember back in secondary school, I was like, some of my mates used to say I was too local because I could speak my language, like my local language, fluently. And I kind of do not understand, because English is a borrowed language, it's a foreign language, it is not my language. So
Mhm.
I do not understand why, like, you're making fun of
Mhm.
me for, like, speaking my local language and not English. I remember
Mhm.
how I was even beaten in they call it vernacular in high schools in Ghana. Oh, you can be punished for speaking vernacular, which is my local language, and not speaking English.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah. Now,
And
yeah, sorry, go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
and all these things are, so it's really disturbing, because what happens is that then you kind of perpetuate the culture that, okay, like, everything local is bad, everything foreign is good. Even when it
Mm.
comes to our mode of religion, like, people, there's so many discourses about, people always
Mhm.
condemning the traditional kind of religion, like African traditional religion, that we know that our ancestors, like, left us with. Because people always, like, demonize, gods, or, like, it's evil, like, stop practice. But I'm an Ashanti originally, I'm Ashanti region of Ghana, and when you go before the king and they have their festivals, like, they pour their libations to their gods, because that is what their ancestors left them with. If you go and
Yes.
tell them to throw them away and believe in Jesus Christ, somebody will tell you that, well, that was introduced by the slave masters, the
Mhm.
colonial masters. So you can't tell them to like abolish that and believe in the God that the slave master brought. And there's so many conversations to this, and that's the why I'm bringing it up is because I think sometimes as Black people, we sort of like throw like what is ours, and we always want to embrace what is foreign. And it's done a lot of damage to us that we sometimes we don't even know. Like in Ghana, I know like neighbors who don't only speak English,
Mhm.
don't speak their local language.
Mm.
And
Yes.
that is a form of parenting that, well, I didn't have that form of parenting because my
Yes.
parents ensured that even my sister, I grew up in Ghana. My sister, my siblings grew up with my parents here in Italy and in UK. So my parents ensured that my siblings can speak our local language. Like it was very
Mhm.
important for them. It was very important for my parents.
Absolutely.
It was very important for my parents always to bring my siblings back home every time they're coming to Ghana, every time. Like just
Yes.
see where they're coming from. Because the
Yes.
people who some of their family friends, like they've not been back home for ages. So they
Mhm.
don't know where they're from. Like
Mm.
if you put them in a plane, whatever you land them in at the airport, they have no idea where they even come from.
Mhm.
That is very serious. Like as a Black person, like if you don't know your roots. So one thing I always advocate for is that look, I I
Mm.
I was born in Italy, but I grew up in Ghana.
Mhm.
And if you ask me where I'm from, I always tell people I'm Ghanaian. I
Mhm.
wouldn't say I'm Italian because
Mhm.
then I have to explain, oh, I was born in Italy, but it's not necessary.
Yes.
I
I
have to
know.
say, I have to say I'm Ghanaian. Then if
Yes.
let's say, I don't know, I have to fill a form, I have to do this, then I can put like both nationalities. But for me, it's always important like to always like be stuck to my roots.
Exactly, exactly. And I want to mention two other, this is good that you brought this up. Like two other points I want to mention is like the language, like you said, it's really important to know the language of your country of origin. So my country of origin is the Democratic Republic of Congo. So even though I wasn't born there, I didn't grow up there, and I've never been there, but I'm fluent in Lingala and in Swahili because my parents wanted to make sure that myself and my two older siblings were born in the DRC, but especially me and them because when they moved from the DRC, my siblings were smaller, that we don't forget the language, like I'm proud to speak Swahili, Lingala, and of course, like the DRC is a Belgian colony, so I do speak Belgian French too. But at the same time, I know I have those two languages that I can pass on, to my future kids. And also, it's good to be able to be proud of your roots, don't hide them. Like you said, no fun facts about your country. Like I've met some, African youth that were born in their countries, they're not like me, but they were born in the countries and then they moved and they don't want to, speak anything. They know, they understand. You can speak to them, they understand, but they don't want to. But I'm saying, it's good to keep your tradition. I'm not saying don't learn English because you are now in Canada, speak only your language, but also know your language because, it's who you are, right? Like you're Black, you can be born in China, but that doesn't make your blood Chinese, your
Exactly.
blood is still running African.
Yeah.
So it's something to be proud of. And also if you have African name, tell people your African name too, like so they learn how to pronounce it, how to say it, don't try to change it, Johnny, like use your African name too. If they can't say it, say this is okay, my name is Johnny, and then your African name, and then your last name, like don't hide that. It's really important to embrace your roots.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So, I don't know if I should like go back to the question that like led to
Yeah.
all that, but would you agree if someone says that we as Africans to a large extent, I don't want to say we are, but to some extent, also to a large extent, we are still mentally enslaved?
This is a tough question. I would agree for some that are still like that, unfortunately. Yes, it's like brainwashed,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So, um, and those who are, who are still like that, it's it's not good. Try to get out of that, you know, um, because you're born an African, you're going to die an African.
Mm,
So you have to accept who you are. You can't change your skin tone. You can't change your blood DNA. You have to accept it. And this is, yeah, this I've seen it a lot in a lot of the youth. um my family, my parents made sure that we were not like that. Like, we still know our roots. With my siblings, we still know our culture. We still, like like I would say, I know sometimes when I speak, Swahili or Lingala, they said, "You speak better than a Congolese person." They said, like, "Were you born there?" I said, "No, I wasn't born there." "Did you live there?" "No, I never lived there." "But how?" Well, because at home we made sure, that the parents made sure that we know, right? Like, even though, yes, I lived there, born there, moved there, but my blood, it's still from there.
mm,
So I know there are some Africans or blacks in general, because there's blacks in the Caribbean too, that they're struggling with that. They're struggling, but it's something they have to try to to work
mm,
on it.
yeah.
Maybe learn more about their roots,
Yeah.
especially those who are like in my case, who've never been there, or who were born outside, or who left their home country young, like. And also those who are parents now. I don't know if there's any parents here, but make sure teach your kids,
Mm, yeah.
teach them what your parents taught them, or what your grandma taught them. It's really important for them to know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all.
absolutely.
I can talk about this forever, but I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I totally understand. I mean, like what you were saying, like I remember my parents also had the same remarks. They used to tell when they were in Italy, people used to tell, oh, like my little sister, she really speaks like good like tree, and I'm like, but you can also teach your children like your language, the same thing, like because
Mhm,
they're not doing anything exceptional. They're just speaking their language with their child. So because I remember when they were in Italy, my mom used to tell my sister that when you go to school, you can speak the Italian with your friends, or you may by immediately you come to the house, it's like Italian Caesars, it's the
mhm,
local
mhm,
language, just to like force them
mhm.
to speak it. Because there's I've met some children here, even UK and even in Italy, like you speak the local language to them, they can understand, but they reply to you in either English
Yes,
or yeah, which
yes.
which is still not good enough because you should
Mhm,
be able to read.
mhm.
Because I always tell my friends that look, you can read English, you can speak it and you can write, but that is a language that was imposed on you. But you should also like give the same attention to your local language. It's very
Yes,
important.
yes.
I don't
Yeah.
care like whatever excuses you have. You're an adult now, so you can take steps. There's so many
Mhm.
apps, there are so many platforms that you can actually like, help you to learn a language. So you don't have an excuse to say, oh, but my parents, well, that's your parents didn't, but what are you doing now as an adult to also correct that? Because our parents always didn't get it right. They always didn't know, like, like
Mhm,
it all. But then as you
mhm.
hold that into your own person as an adult, you also learn to understand like what you're lacking, and then you fix it. You don't always have to
Yes,
blame that on your parents or your upbringing or all that. At a point, you need to take full responsibility over like, your life as an adult.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, very important. And then the thing about mental slavery, like, this we cannot talk about Africa without talking about also some of like the leadership and the levels of corruption and everything happening on the continent. It's complicated. I mean, because we have like over 50 countries on there, and the economic inequalities that is pushing a lot of young people also to the west, to the diaspora these days. because of, the hardships and everything happening. So what do you have to say about that? Like, just briefly, like, what do you think, we as young people, Black people here in the diaspora, and then what do you think we can do to contribute to stopping that, or to make our countries better? Because there's a serious like brain drain happening. And if it continues for the next couple of years, like, I don't know what's going to happen to our national economies back home.
Mm. Oh, good, good question. I would say, first, the young people who have never been to their countries,
Mhm.
first learn about your country, educate yourself, ask your parents, read books, learn the language. And second, see how you can help. Maybe you don't need to travel to your country, but maybe there's organizations you can partner up where you are right now, like in Canada, for instance. We do a lot. There's lots of organizations where you can partner up and help different countries, just from being here. I don't know in the UK. I assume it's the same as the UK, but find organizations, find ways you can help, reach out to people, travel there, if it's in a stable condition, if your country is in a stable condition and you have the opportunity to go, through an organization, an agency or something, go, like it depends which country, because some countries now are not safe to travel, but if it is safe, go learn about it, see what you can do,
Yeah,
yeah, no, there's very different ways of helping, of making a difference, and
yeah,
sometimes you can make a difference right from your desk here.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you so much for that. And just to the last question, well, I have for you before we open up to the those listening in. What's your parting message for, everyone, all of us celebrating Black History Month?
So as we celebrate Black History Month, my message is this: let's remember that Black history is not confined to a single month. It is woven into the fabric of global history. Our contributions, struggles, and triumphs have shaped societies across the world. It's important to continue reclaiming our narratives, celebrating our culture, and advocating for the progress that remains to be achieved. So I encourage all of us here, regardless of background, to take this month as a starting point for deeper reflection and action. And not just this month, like take every day to do that. We must commit to pushing for equity, challenging injustice, and creating spaces for Black voices to be heard and valued year around. Celebrate our diversity, honor our resilience, and keep pushing for a future where our collective history is recognized and our contributions are given the respect that they deserve.
Thank you so much for that parting message. Really profound. And yeah, I also refuse to believe that we should just confine the whole Black History Month celebration to just a month. And as Black people, there's a whole lot that we are currently achieving in across all sectors, across all industries. And we should continue to tell our stories. We should continue to celebrate, and we should continue to platform ourselves, helping each other, like pushing each other into like spaces, like recommending each other, like, for positions and for opportunities. That's how we grow. That's how we conquer the world. That's how we change the narrative. So thank you so much, Patricia, for the amazing insights and knowledge you shared with us today. Now I'll open it up to our listeners. Anyone has any questions for Patricia? Please, you can unmute yourself, and then, yeah, you can ask your question.
Yes, hello. I want to say a few things. Thank you very much for this presentation. It was very, very nice, very effective, and very, very informative. It was a nice one since I've heard in the last months, since weeks, I haven't heard a good presentation like that. I want to add some a few items and key facts. Also, my own biography is similar to yours. I have been born in Austria, but my parents are from India, Asia, also not African directly, but nearly. And in Austria, the racism item is also very widespread nowadays again. And Austria, although a member of the European Union, and here in Vienna, yes, we had 2 weeks before, not this, on the last Sunday, we had the elections here, and the Freedom Party has the first seat, the National Assembly election, and the Freedom Party is on the first space, and all the other, the good parties, the Social Democrats and the Green Party and so on, have not so good results. And now we are waiting for a new government. And in 2019, the Freedom Party was in the government. We had the world famous Ibiza scandal at this time, and they have been thrown out of the government there. And the problem here in Austria is that the constitutional court of Austria hasn't forbidden rightly by procedure and by law this Freedom Party. And so we do not know which kind of people have voted them, because they haven't done in the last legislature period nothing in the past 5 years here in Austria. And although they have nearly 29%, all the other parties have less than them, 20% the Social Democrats, and nearly 20% the People's Party, and the News have less than 10%, and the Green Party has also lost a lot of, although they have been in the government and had worked very well, 8% or what. And so nowadays are the talks about which kind of government will come. We hope that the Freedom Party goes into the opposition and the other parties make a good government. This is the wish of most of the Austrians, 70% or so. I don't know what will happen, and this is an example of this racism kind, and the less education thing, that the people are not so good educated. And this is the fact. This was wrong, and this must be broken down. There must be more education, and there must be more top discussions about it and lectures, so that the people get more knowledge and have the more idea to make a better future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just like add a bit of a comment there to what you said. Like it sounds like, yeah, sometimes election time, it's a nerve-wracking time. I know Canada will have elections next year, so we're all waiting to see what would be our next government. The US is having election now. They're waiting to see what's gonna happen there. So
And Ghana
it
is also having
is
one this December.
exactly. It is a nerve-wracking time. I would say, like you touched based on education, you said again. But I'm not sure how it is like in Austria, but I know in Canada, if you want to, let's say, volunteer in a campaign during elections, you can do that, or try to learn more like what's happening, you can do that. So I'm not sure, Ahmad, if kind of, because I think if I understand correctly your points, you're a bit concerned what will happen during these coming elections and so and so. So I don't know if there's a way, as an Austrian citizen with an Indian background, if you can, try to volunteer within those campaigns or try to learn more about it.
Yes, we have the party system here in Austria: the Social Democrats, the People's Party, the Freedom Party, the Green Party, and the latest the News, a new European Party. And the people here who are actively interested goes to their functions, attend the parties, and so work for the political parties. Yes, and during the elections, yes, there is a lot of stuff you can do when you visit. But the most of this is like on the streets, and the ad distribution, the ads and such, like this is the most what here in Austria is provided. Well, about education, we have before Corona, maybe things had been better, but we have two items. If there is Hauptschule, very easy after elementary school for 4 years, and then you can make a Lehre, means 3 years, and you are a cook, a bakery also, or you do the gymnasium and go to the university. And I have done this line. I have done the gymnasium. This was at this time Buddhist Gymnasium Schützengasse. This was the first one. There I have learned Latin and French, and it was the hardest gymnasium I know. It was the one of the best ones in Austria. From the best ones, it had been on the first space, and from there I have done the Matura, and afterwards I have done another a line of gymnasium 4 years for becoming a teacher in different subjects. So this kind of education I have, and later I've studied law. This I have done, and then I've done the court trainings for becoming a judge. This I'm also too, and then I have done some other educational things. Außenpolitische Akademie, for foreign policy, I've learned a course, and for media, Medienkompetenzlehrgang. Is it called in German? Everything's here in German, yes. And then I've done Lehrlingsausbilderkurs, means that those who do the Hauptschule and are going for Lehre, the youngsters, I'm allowed to take the exams and do the education things, means that later I can work at school as a director. This stands for that. And I have done the employer branding specialist course. The CELTA part 1 and part 2 was for English, for professional English teacher and the mainstreaming and such kind of this stuff. And then Corona began, and then I began all the things online. And online, I've also done a lot of mocks, this massive open online courses from different items. And
I'm
now
so
see, I
sorry.
am online here.
Hello. Sorry.
Yes,
But we our time is sort of fast spent.
yes, I know. Yes, I know.
We
Yeah.
have to move to another
Yeah.
question. Thank you so much for your contribution. Really appreciated. So Patricia, we have a question here from Turia. So she's saying, thank you, Patricia, for this interesting webinar. You mentioned that we should continue to educate ourselves on the topic and that you are an avid reader. Could you give some book recommendations from fiction and nonfiction?
Mm-hmm. One book that comes to my mind now is Becoming, the book that was written by Michelle Obama. That's a really good one. And I think I read that like 10,000 times, that book. It's so good. There's few others that I can see the book cover, but I can't think of the names. But I'll be happy to send you a list. I'll share my LinkedIn here in the chat.
Yeah.
So I'll be happy to share share the link of all my readings because it's quite long now. And I know there's more questions too.
Yeah.
If people have, I'll share
So,
my LinkedIn.
please do share your LinkedIn and so people can follow you. So we have another question from thanks for the question, Turia. We have another question from Taiwo, who is also one of us at the Global Activist Network. So she's saying, my question in in Chimamanda Adichie's popular TEDx talk, The Danger of a Single Story, she highlighted how stereotypes, especially about Africa, are often oversimplified narratives that do not represent the diversity and strength of our continent. How do you believe Black communities globally, including Africans, are unconsciously contributing to reinforcing some of these stereotypes?
Like how they want to show the diversity? Is that
Taiwo, do you want to unmute yourself and maybe provide some clarity on your question? Hi, Taiwo.
Oh, sorry. I forgot I was muted. So the question is just around, I wouldn't know if you've listened to the TED Talk by Chimamanda Adichie. I think it was recorded in 2009. So it's just basically how the, civilized world view Africans, in such a vulnerable state. So I feel that, many of us are also contributing to this. We are reinforcing, how people view us. So probably in terms of how we tell our stories, say,
well, we have to it's a very broad question. We have to, first of all, educate people, and based on, what they hear from us, they will understand more. So, like, I'm trying to think of an example. When I introduce myself, to people, they ask me, where are you from, for example, right? I said, I'm Canadian, but I was born, so I make sure they know my roots, right? Because they hear an accent, and that accent, they can't tell where it's from. It sounds French, it sounds European, it sounds African, but, like, I make sure I narrate myself, if that makes sense. So my advice is, all Africans, all person of color, all person, from different countries, they need to narrate themselves so people know, where are they from, who they are, what's their story, what's their background. So introduce yourself with, like a fun fact about your country, or your language, or your accent, or yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and thanks for that response. And Taiwo, I hope your question is answered. I'll just add a bit, say I like how now there are like content creators who have set like put upon themselves to elevate, like Africa, like show people different parts of Africa, like, this is Africa, that is Africa, and to like, to dismantle that narrative of, oh, Africans are living on trees, or I don't know, those kind of the part of Africa where the media wants the world to see, and not the part of Africa that some of us grew up in. So like, yeah, is very important also, like the use of media to also like, project that. And a lot of people, like I remember in Ghana in 2019, the president initiated this year of return initiatives, where a lot of Black Americans, like, came down. Like there was Steve Harvey, there was some now Hollywood celebrities, like a lot of them like coming to Ghana just to, experience that whole, coming back home, quote unquote. And with even can't believe I've forgotten this man's name, but oh, it's not coming, but he was recently conferred a Ghanaian citizenship. He's blind. He's a very well-known artist. I can't remember his name, but
Is it Stevie Wonder?
yeah,
Yes,
thank you,
Stevie
Michelle.
Wonder.
Yeah, Stevie Wonder. Yeah, he recently like conferred like a Ghanaian citizenship, and all that, just to like encourage people to come back to the continent, because there's so much like there, like to learn. Like, I saw this photo of like some Black Americans, like, standing at the Omina Castle, like at the gate, the door of no return, where, where the slaves are like sent through, like, that's the end. You're not coming back. And, like they took this like powerful picture there. And I remember seeing one too with Steve Harvey, sitting at the stairs, was like, shedding some tears. I don't know. Like, I mean, I still maintain that if you go to those places and you do not shed any tear, like you really have a hard heart, because there's listen, like if anyone, like if any of you here are based in Africa, like do try and visit one of those like slave trades. It's very important. And if you're not, if you have the opportunity, do like visit Ghana and go to Elmina Castle or Cape Coast Castle, just to learn a bit more about slave trade and the history and everything that really went down. I think it's very important, like just to sort of like provide a bit more, in-depth like explanation of like how things really happened, and not what maybe you may find on social media, but what actually happened, which is really important. So thank you for that response, Patricia. Anyone has any more questions for Patricia?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the talk, Patricia. It's been really, really amazing. I had one quick question.
Yes.
Having been sort of, in the diaspora, but also working in international development and all these really interesting topics like race and whatnot, how do you keep yourself connected to what's going on in the country, in like the continent of Africa and the countries that you came from, whilst living in Europe or America or anywhere? How do you keep yourself sort of aware or touch base of that? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. My phone. I have so many apps, news apps. I read, I follow, I'm aware of what's going on, even through my line of work, right? Like there's always a change, you know, we're always being updated. This is what's going on in this country. This is what's going on now. You know, there's an election coming up. This is gonna affect this. You know, Canada has many partnership with so many countries. So whenever something is happening in country XYZ, you know, we're always aware. We're always you know, up to the news. We know what's going on. So, and I like to read the news every day. So I have all these alerts on my phone. I open the TV. I read, you know, the newspaper, sometimes old school, just the newspaper. Yeah, or I don't really like to follow what I see the news on Instagram. I rather go on an actual like news website, or sometimes in Canada we have the CBC. I guess UK has the BBC. You know, it's, and I do read BBC too. So it's, yeah. So it's, I'm always updated, you know, through my devices or work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that, Michelle, and thank you, Patricia, for your response. Any more questions for Patricia?
And I've shared my LinkedIn
Yeah.
as well. So if anyone wants to connect, I'll be happy to connect.
Okay, so please do connect with Patricia. As you can see, she's a powerhouse. She has a lot of experiences under her belt, and that she's done so much, also contributing to the Black culture, and also to the betterment and positive, having a positive impact on society as well, not just in Canada, but I mean looking at all the places that she's lived in, and you know all the amazing work that she's done also with her is the Canada Diversity, is it Advantage? Did I get it right?
Yes, Canada's Diversity Advantage.
Do you want to like talk more on that? Is this something that still like exists, or is this like an like up and running
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, so I did this project with the United Nations Association of Canada in partnership.
Okay.
And this project started 2017. So 2017, worked together with them. First of all, we started off by going to different schools and educate the younger kids about the importance of diversity. And then the project kind of grew, and it became a project, you know, on migration, and again, like what migration does and what it brings, you know, in Canada, and the importance, the richness, you know, the skills, the talents, and so and so. So it was basically to educate people that, you know, being in a multicultural country, it's not a bad thing. It's people from different parts of the world that bring different skills, you know, that that makes the country rich. So that was mostly the point of this project.
Okay. So has it ended, or is this something that you do like, I don't know, every like once and
Yeah, it's still,
or-
I still do it. I still do it. Still advocate through it, you know, have people helping me out with it, and so and so. So
Okay.
yeah, it's busy. It's been busy.
Okay. Yeah. Because I wanted to know like if there was any how we could, I don't know if there's a website or social media, like any how we could like sort of like follow and like support, like any way that like we could help as well. Like yeah, just like
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can definitely share more details on that.
yeah, I mean, personally, we are already connected. I'm just like talking like on
Yeah.
behalf of like everyone on there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be happy because I'm very like also key on diversity and inclusion, because that is something that I mean it's sort of like related to everything we've spoken about, like you know, Black people, especially in certain spaces and you know all that, which in representation, like we talked about, is really important. It matters, like you know, seeing a Black woman like you know Michelle Obama, like Kamala Harris, like you know all these Black women like killing it, like doing amazing work. Like you know, you see that like sort of like, okay, if they've been able to do it, then I can do it. Like, because I have also the ability, I have the power, I have that resilient like spirit to do it, the African spirit, if you could call it that.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah, it's very like, key to have like people like you, people like self also like championing some of these causes and ensuring that our voices are heard and we are also represented, which is very important. So if there are no more questions for Patricia, who has kindly stayed with us for
One question, one point I wanted to say, because of English is the global language, and languages are very important. Therefore, everyone should learn as much languages as possible, and the own language, or the language of the heritage, or the language of our of our grandparents, and the home country's language. The youngsters should learn that as much as possible. But because after some generation, it's no more so easy, because they live in the other country, and the language is, like in my case, it is German. But I also know the language of my parents very well. But English, I must say, as an advantage, as a global language, is very easy to understand. If all the people speak English, so we can understand each other very easily. And you are absolutely right with your language, Ghanaian, that you should speak it, learn it, and know it. But there are so many different languages, so we need a common language. And since centuries, English is the common language. So this is the advantage, that we all have to learn English, because here in Austria, not a lot of people know English very well, and this is one fact which I have to mention here on this space. English as a global language is very important. This I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution. And now, like, we've kept you here for over an hour. Apologies, but
No worries. All good, all good. I put like 2 hour window for this
okay,
presentation because I knew there'll
okay,
be questions. Don't worry
yeah,
about it.
yeah. Thank you so much. But before we let you go, any final words? Like, I mean, I know you've already but do you have any anything else that you want to tell us before we bring this to a close?
Happy Black History Month every day. There shouldn't be just a month, it should be every day. Keep doing amazing work. I'm sure everyone here, is a mover and shaker in different ways. Connect with people, don't be afraid, have self-confidence, don't give up whatever challenges you're going through. Make sure that you keep your chin up, and life is not always going to be easy, but whatever goal that you have, you can do it, you can reach to it. That's my advice.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Patricia, for those words, like just to sum up everything. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on here on behalf of the Global Activist Network team. I would like to say thank you so much for gracing our platform and for sharing your insights and knowledge with us on such an important day, and also in such an important month, the Black History Month. So thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to have you back on another topic or another discussion.
Absolutely.
Just to pick your knowledge. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone for staying with us to the very end, and I hope you learned a thing or two. And then yeah, please let's go ahead to be amazing and to shatter those glass ceilings and break barriers and do a thing, because we have that power, we have the ability. So let's go and conquer the world and show that yeah, we have that spirit. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and please follow our socials, Global Activist Network, across all social media platforms, and have our website as well. Please do stay tuned for all the amazing initiatives that we have in store for you and for change makers as well. We have our Global Change Makers program, where we spotlight amazing change makers like Patricia herself, who are doing amazing work in their communities and in their countries. So you can nominate a change maker as well. And yeah, if you have any questions or you have any anything that you'd like to, any project you'd like to partner with us, whatever it is, please email us contact@gan.org.uk, and we'll definitely get back to you. And we would upload this session as well on our YouTube channel. So in case you want to have a playback, it will be there in a couple of days. So you can have a playback, and we'll share it of course across our socials when it's ready. So yeah.
And
thank
also, I want to say thank you, Gertrude and Tayo. You know, you guys, you need applause too, because you've been organizing these sessions every month. So thank you for that. You work hard. It's worldly. Everyone here is connected from different parts of the world. So thank you for your work on that as well. So you guys also need an applause.
Yeah, thank you. We humbly received all the flowers, and yeah, Lemona, who is my co-founder, she's here, but she's on mute. She has an engagement, so she can't really contribute. So I'm sure she had. If she didn't, I would tell her the nice things you said about us. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and being here today, and also for everything that you said. We really do and like we will take it in, and we would definitely advance with it as we go forward as a team and also as individuals. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a blissful evening and weekend, and let's continue to be amazing change makers in our communities and everywhere we find ourselves. So yeah, good night, and see you on our next webinar. Bye.
Bye bye.